Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. I am Michelle from Consolidated Planning Group. We are a financial planning firm that focuses on serving clients who have a loved one in their life who has some kind of intellectual or developmental disability. Almost all of our clients have a loved one in their life with some kind of need. So we love presenting these webinars. Today, we're going to be talking about higher education and navigating higher education with your special needs loved one. So a couple of things before we get started. I just want to let everybody know that we are recording this webinar and we record all of our webinars and put them on our YouTube channel. So I have already put the link to the YouTube channel in the chat box. You are also going to receive an email later today that's going to have all of the slides, and it will have a link to this presentation on our YouTube channel. Also, I want to let you know that we cannot see or hear you because we're in webinar mode. So feel free to enjoy your lunch, have a snack, have a drink. We can't see you anyway, but we still want to get your thoughts and opinions and questions. So please go ahead and put those in the chat box. It looks like it's working perfectly. Just make sure that you, April, click that you want this to go to everyone instead of just hosts and panelists. All right, so without any further I think that's everything. I've covered everything. I'm going to let April take over for a little bit, and she's going to tell us about navigating. She's going to tell us about Texoma, Workforce Solutions Texoma. Go ahead, dear.
Yes, well, I am so excited to get to the meat of the conversation today with the doctor, and I won't attempt to mess up your name, but really glad to be here. The slides that I'll be showing today, some of them I'm not a slide reader. Some of them will be for your information to let you know a little bit about Workforce Solutions, which is available throughout the state of Texas and vocational rehabilitation. Workforce Solutions is designed for anybody to walk in who's looking for a job. All of our services are free. We have adaptive equipment in each office that's available, along with specialists who can help you with your resume. They can help enroll you in work in Texas. And then I also am a partner in vocational rehabilitation. Vocational rehabilitation is designed to help students and adults with disabilities be able to get education, training, and resources, and to help them look for jobs. And if you would like to enroll in vocational rehabilitation, this slide in particular will let you know how to do that. You can call the contact center at the 512 number. You can do the Start My VR. I do, however, caution people, if you do that, write down the date. Make sure you keep that. In the special education world, many of you already know if it's not written down, it never happened. So make sure you have that written down. They will give you a case or a referral number. Keep that as well. If you don't hear something back in a couple of weeks, I would encourage you to reach out either to the email or to your local office. And sometimes the quickest way to apply for vocational rehabilitation is to do a walk-in. Most offices take walk-in appointments. You can do that, or you can call and schedule an appointment at your local office as well. And those QR codes that you saw earlier will have where your office is located, and you can check to see if vocational rehabilitation is co-located within your Workforce Solutions office. And the resources here, the Texas Career Check and the Reality Check, are cost of living calculators that are tailored for every area of Texas. So you can put in the same information for Houston as you would for Texoma, my area, and you'll get two very different figures. And it helps you research the type of education for the standard of living that you pick. And then this is just a general overview of services for my Texoma, which is Grayson, Cook, and Fannin counties area. However, since Workforce Solutions is available throughout the state of Texas, many of these similar things are available in your area. And then what families often don't know is that if you qualify for vocational rehabilitation, you may also qualify for something else under the WIOA, which is the Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act. and that goes to our target occupation list. Every area throughout the state of Texas has one, and these occupations are incentivized. So you may be able to have your education paid for through these target occupation lists. And then if you need supplies or other things, vocational rehabilitation may be able to assist with that. I never promise anything. Everything is done on an individual basis, on a case by case need. And then if you'd like to get in touch with me, or you'd like to see some of my former presentations, if you see me talk in your area, you can always find those on my Padlet. And I think that's about all I have. I'm so glad to hear from you both.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, April. Thank you for being here and for all the hard work that you do. I know it's not easy. We appreciate you so much. And we were just talking this morning about how much we all love you. So we're glad you're here today. Consolidated Planning Group, real quick, a little bit about us before I introduce our fantastic speaker today. Like I said, we are a financial planning firm. We've been around for about 30 years, and we have experience in everything that any normal financial advisor would do for you, we can do for you. Securities, investments, life insurance, retirement planning, all of that kind of stuff. But we do it through the lens of understanding that your child might not be able to be completely independent. They need a lot of help and resources, and you need guidance because the nuances of planning for an adult to be taken care of after you're gone is very complicated. So it's not just planning for your life, but planning until the end of your child's life that we help with. Of course, we have worked very, very hard to become the experts in all of these special needs related topics and helping gather resources for families and helping them plan for the future. We are members of the Special Needs Planning Academy. We are also National Social Security Advisors, and I am a chartered special needs consultant. And through all of these educational, things we've done, we have really gathered so much great information. Now, we are located in Houston, or just outside of Houston, Texas, but we work all across Texas and all across the United States. So if you're in a different state, welcome. I love that you're here. Today's information is going to be helpful for pretty much anyone. So feel free to share this with your out-of-state people, and we can help them too. If we're not licensed in your state yet, we will just go ahead and do that and become licensed in your state to help you. So families come to us for special needs planning. I mean, that includes protection plans, thinking about what happens if you can't take care of your loved one anymore. What if you become disabled or pass away too quickly, too soon? How can we help mitigate those risks? We do lifetime care planning, thinking about that cost of care in the future. Transition planning, that is often a big topic for us. What happens when your loved one turns 18 or graduates from high school, or the transition of going to work or moving out of the family home, or whatever transition periods they are at in their life, we can help you with that. Of course, we do ABLE accounts, and we can help you figure out what buckets of money you need to have set up and how they flow into each other. And we're here to advocate for you and to educate you. That's why we do these webinars, is because it's so important that you have good information. And, this is complicated stuff. So we really work hard to make sure that you have the most up-to-date, accurate information that we can provide. Out of the entire United States, there are over 263,000 financial advisors. But out of that 263,000 financial advisors, there's fewer than 200 who focus on special needs planning like we do. That's less than 0.1%. So it might be difficult to find experts in this area. And I'm so glad that you found us, because we are here to help. We want you to develop a future care plan. Start now. The sooner you start, the better you're going to sleep at night. If you have a longer runway, you have a better chance at making small corrections that are going to have a big impact. Whereas if you wait and you keep putting this off, you never know what's going to happen. Life passes quickly. And if you're not prepared for it, you could miss out on some of the great information that you need. You could jeopardize your children's benefits. So think about what's going to happen after you're gone? What is going to happen after high school? There are great residential options. There are community options, educational, vocational, as April was talking about. There's so much out there for your loved ones, and we can help you find those resources. And then finally, the last thing I always like to say is just be careful if you think that a sibling is going to be able and willing to step in for you as caregiver to your individual. It could create resentment on both sides of that equation. And we don't want anybody's family to struggle with that. So what we say is plan as much as you can. And even if that does end up being the solution for your family, at least make sure that you're giving your caregiving child enough resources and funding and help to be able to take care of their special sibling. All right, you're not here to listen to me, so I'm going to shush, and I am going to introduce Dr. Shakarpurya. You do it.
Thank you, Michelle. I appreciate it. Hi, everyone. My name is Sehrish Shikarpurya.
Shakarpurya.
Yes.
Got it. Thank you for being here so much with us today. I cannot wait to hear what you have to say. If I go too fast or too slow, just let me know with the slides.
Thank you, Michelle. I appreciate it. And thank you, April, for sharing such wonderful information about Workforce Solutions. I've worked with them, through some of the students that I've worked with for a while. So I know how important and busy your role is for sure. So hi, everyone. My name is Sehrish Shikarpurya. I'm an assistant professor of special education at the University of Maryland. I primarily work with a lot of parents in helping them figure out what happens after high school in terms of the educational pathways that your child or a loved one can kind of take on. I am actually a Texas native. So I did my PhD at Texas A&M University. I worked there for a bit as well. I taught as a middle school teacher in special education, both in Austin as well as in Houston. So I've had several experiences in Texas, and our presentation today is going to be mainly around Texas schools and higher education opportunities in Texas. But again, I will also share some national opportunities if you are not from Texas, or if you'd like someone else to explore these opportunities moving forward. So again, today, I just would like to introduce myself, welcome you to the presentation, and then we're going to jump right into some graduation options, what is out there, especially if your child is not getting to that, you're not thinking about graduation just yet, or you might have a younger child or a loved one or a caregiver. Just wanted to kind of throw some options out there, then thinking about what higher education would look like, and thinking more deeply about this notion of inclusive higher education. And I'm going to give you a lot of different examples of what the application process looks like, what kind of decisions are made on the back end, what are they really looking for, what exists out there. And then we might have some time at the end for Q&A. So again, feel free to put some of your questions in the chat box, either throughout or toward the end, and Michelle will get to you, at the end of the conversation.
Absolutely.
Again, so I actually grew up in Atlanta, Georgia, went to London to do my master's, and then ended up at Texas A&M for my PhD. As you can see here, that's my lovely dog, Ollie. He's 8 years young and still very energetic. And some of the work that I do in my research, my teaching, is really looking at post-secondary transition and equity, and making sure that we understand all the different intersectional identities that come with each individual, and putting that at the forefront as we think about the opportunities ahead moving forward in their lives. So let's get to it. Transition to adulthood is something that can feel very scary. is something that I think we still don't talk about enough, but it's something that we actually have the tools to prepare for. So when we think about transition to adulthood, we often think about this cliff of transition where, you know, K through 12 helps you jump up and climb up the mountain. And once you get there, often a lot of parents, caregivers feel like, okay, we stuck. What do I do now? And it feels like the school system is kind of pushing us out. And that's really important for us to recognize, because this is where transition planning really comes. And transition planning acts like little parachutes. So then when the push comes, you have all the support and the fluffiness and everything else you need for you and your child to feel secure moving forward after high school ends. And typically in Texas, we think about planning for transition at the age of 14. We have it as a section in the IEP where it says transition planning. And, you know, it's through some of my trainings, I go through what to look for in IEP meetings and what kind of things transition planning should cover. But essentially, when we think about post-school transition, although today we're going to be focused on higher education, as a caregiver, I really want you to think about things like community living, social relationships, thinking about an employment option, thinking about apprenticeship, thinking about volunteering, thinking about community living, all of those things that come with becoming an adult. But like I mentioned today, our focus is going to be entirely on higher education. So let's explore some graduation options together. One of the most basic graduation options is a typical graduation where the student is going to pass the STAR test. They're going to get all their endorsements that they need. Majority of the time is going to be in general education placement. They're going to receive a regular high school diploma. And typically the special education services end after this graduation. Now there's a second option, which is more of a modified option. This is the one that majority of the students really take, which is you complete modified content. IEP team, our team, I forget about the ARD in Texas. So the ARD team decides, you know, what modifications, accommodations we need to make, what adjustments need to go in to make sure that the requirements can be completed. The child gets a regular high school diploma, and they could also receive additional special education services after graduation. Now, the third option is a certificate option. This is where it doesn't count as a high school diploma. It's a certificate. You typically age out of the system at the age of 21, 22, depending on your district. However, with the certificate options, I always challenge parents to think about is what is the goal for your child, and does this graduation option really meet that goal? Often, you know, I speak about this as a former educator in middle school, but sometimes you might be recommended for a certificate option, especially if your child has an intellectual disability. But then you see that it doesn't really match what they want to do after high school. So for instance, if they want to work, if they want to go into a four-year college, or if they want to, you know, take additional coding classes, or they want to do X, Y, Z, that certificate is not really going to help them achieve those goals. So really think about aligning the goals to what kind of a graduation they're going to be a part of. And I also want you to think about the challenges of the job market nowadays and the ways that we're moving forward in the future. And if the ART team can really build a strong capacity for your child to graduate through a regular high school diploma, I really highly recommend you think about that and advocate for that if you also agree with that, because it might help them get a job that in the future that is going to align with their goals, and not really become a barrier to access. Sometimes that certificate can become a barrier, as we all know, but you know, I just make the decision based on your individual case, but I just always want to highlight that options exist outside of the certificate option, and it's our team's responsibility to make that available for you and accessible for your child. So just quickly, what's the difference between a diploma and a certificate? Again, both will enable your child to get accommodations. Not all are accepted by colleges. So a diploma is typically more readily acceptable than a certificate. Most, if not all, employers look for a high school diploma, but some are more hesitant if your child does have a certificate. You might also not be eligible for some federal student aid if they have a certificate. And both can actually stay in school districts after the age of 18, even if they graduate with a diploma or a certificate. So keep that in mind and work with your ARD team to make that a possibility, depending on your district and the funding that they have currently. So as you're thinking about graduation, here are just a few options and questions that you can ask your ARD team at your next IEP, at your ARD meeting. What graduation is better for my child based on their goals? How do we get community agencies or organizations involved in supporting my child? That would be like Workforce Solutions, where sometimes they come into these ARD meetings and help us determine what's the best plan for us. What 18 plus programs are available? They're usually programs that help the individual work on daily living skills. That could be, you know, going to HEB and looking at the ingredients list. It could be working in a social environment. It could also include things like, how do I wash my clothes? Do I need to wash my clothes? How often should I be showering? How often should I be, texting a stranger, right? Those are the life skills that we really focus on in the 18 plus programs. And think about the child's daily schedules as well. Not babysitting services, should not be babysitting services. Skill development is a key point of these programs. And as a parent, we really want you to empower yourself and the child to look for these key programmatic things. And finally, what higher education programs are going to support my child's needs after high school? So when we think about, you know, in your IEP document, there'll be a section that says post-secondary education for transition. And this means two things, essentially. It's a training and education according to the law. Training means something that might be more related to after high school, or you get a certificate, something short-term like a vocational program. Oftentimes education, when they say that legally, it really refers to, it could be a community or a technical college, 2-year programs, 4-year programs, whatever that may be. So, you know, the definitions could be a little complicated, so just wanted to simplify it for you here. Another thing parents often forget, because we're so used to the ARD services, but after they graduate, essentially, unless they're still in the 18 plus, ARD and IEP sort of dissolve, right? We go into the Americans with Disabilities Act, which protects and serves individuals with disabilities. But when you go into a college setting, whatever setting that might be, you typically need to either present them with a summary of performance from your school or a 504 plan, something that says, hey, this individual has a disability and these are the accommodations they might need to navigate school. So they're not really responsible for the day-to-day for your child. And that's really a shift in mindset that we really need to start thinking about, is that they are legally bound to give your child XYZ services that your child will need to advocate for. Now, beyond that, it's very little. So to prepare for those things, maybe around the age of 14, 15, when you start the transition planning process, make sure you ground it in the graduation requirements and the appropriate goals are developed. And you can also ask for them to conduct a functional vocational evaluation. Oftentimes, we can do it every 6 months or so in an ARD setting, where they have different, the ARD team will have different assessments for your child to complete, to think about, okay, what are some of the different vocations that the child can go into? What are some things that they like doing? What are, I had a student who said they wanted to be a DJ, which was great, but we realized they hated working with their hands. So we were like, we have to come up with a different idea, right? Or like a speech system or something that will help us instead of using our hands. Or I had a student who really wanted to work at Chick-fil-A, but he really did not like being around people or loud sounds. So we had to determine that there was a disconnect, right? So a functional evaluation could help us really think through those pieces together. And this is something I always say to family members and caregivers: if you don't have a goal, you probably won't have an outcome. So make sure there is a goal for each of the transition sections in your IEP document. Okay. enough about that. But let's now think about, what does higher education really look like? And particularly for students with intellectual and developmental disabilities, there are these programs called IPSI programs, which were a grant funded programs that started way back after the Higher Education Opportunity Act. And since then, they have grown tremendously. So Think College is sort of, in Massachusetts, has been the hub of these IPSI programs, as we call them. They are about 333 programs in the country and continue to grow over time. We have about 17 in Texas. So Texas offers us a lot of opportunities to engage in these programs. So these programs were designed specifically for young adults with intellectual and/or developmental disabilities. It's a section of the college experience. I would like to think about that in the circle of college. This is one of the other inner circles. Each program has a different requirement, cost, residential options, and they all gear toward different outcomes. Some might want to go toward employment. Some might want just a college experience. Some might have a little bit of both. Not all programs provide a degree, and I think that's really important to think about. Some are just certificate programs, and what is that certificate going to do for your child? But most of them actually do have a high school diploma requirement and or other certain skills. That's why I was kind of emphasizing that diploma a little bit more in earlier slides. So again, about 17-ish programs. And why should you think about these programs? It enables students with IDD to go to college, regardless of their SAT scores, ACT scores, sometimes even regardless of high school diploma. Some programs even want or are welcoming with certificates. It's an inclusive college experience usually where you are part of the college environment, but there are some spaces that are more one-on-one designed for your child with an intellectual disability. It increases the peer networks for your child. Instead of them coming in by themselves, you have a cohort of people that are there to support them and really give them the cushion that they need to continue on life in a college environment. Oftentimes they require modified academics. So instead of being graded on a scale of a typical college class, students might take the college class, but they might take it for 0 credit. They might take it for maybe 1 credit. And their workload would be extremely modified. A lot of these programs have a really good one-on-one peer mentor model where there are other college students that are assigned to be part of like a peer circle. And they come in and they support the individual with IDD with, let's say, getting their homework done on time, going to the gym, maybe getting into a sorority or a fraternity, or all of these other things that I think having a one-on-one support could be really helpful. They also help your child focus on adulthood skills within higher education setting. So we'll talk about this later, but like dating, which most people do in college, right? Or going to take a bus to go to the grocery store by themselves, or go to IKEA, or think about how to resolve conflicts when you hate your roommate because she keeps eating your food or taking your hairbrush, or all of these things, right? That are very common issues that happen in adulthood. And this would be resolved mostly through naturalistic setting and one-on-one support. And finally, employment training is one of the hubs of these programs, where they put students into these internship opportunities, volunteer opportunities. A lot of them connect with the Workforce Solutions or vocational rehabilitation to provide sort of these additional opportunities for the students to be job ready by the time they exit the program. So these are some of the ones in Texas. I've worked with VAST before. Again, like I mentioned, I was at A&M, so I was heavily involved in IB Achieve. LifePath is a good one too. I've had some parents enroll their child in UNT Elevar in North Texas. Texas State has a really good program. All of them are really good. And the point is to show you the diversity and, more importantly, how different they are and what the outcome is. So you can individualize. So who might benefit from an IPSI program? If you're thinking, is this a good opportunity for my child? Typically, people between the ages of 21, but I would say 18 to 27 with an intellectual or a developmental disability. These young adults want to go to college. Not that they're forced to go to college. They really want to be there because it's going to be a transition for sure. they want to work typically after college. They can complete some tasks independently, for instance, hygiene, maybe using a phone, texting, picking up the call if someone calls, taking a campus bus or a shuttle, um, you know, being honest about their location or things like that. Like some of these things want to just think about. They typically want these young adults to be their own legal guardians because a lot of day-to-day decision making happens. Not always, but most of the programs will advertise that. And people who want to make friends, people who want to be in a social space or an environment, because college is inherently a very social environment. So you're probably thinking, this is excellent. What do I do in these programs? Or what is my goal as a parent or a caregiver? One of the things that I think parents have a really hard time with when they think about these programs is stepping back or letting go sometimes, because you have been so heavily involved in your child's education, K through 12. You've advocated, made the major decisions, and really been there for your child day to day. Now it's about the person. They're an adult, they're in college. So you will now play the role of a facilitator of a decision maker. So the staff at these programs are probably not going to call you to say, what medicine does Alex take? Or is it okay if Alex decides to go on a date with Stephanie? Probably not going to happen. So a lot of it is going to be then the person or the young adult making these decisions and taking charge of their decisions. We're again going to switch to FERPA. So a lot of the stuff legally, we're not able to tell parents. You will serve as a sounding board for courses, right? I had a parent who really wanted their child to take certain courses, and the child stopped telling the parents about the courses because they're like, the mom's going to tell me I had to take this and I really hate that class and I can't take it anymore. So you become a sounding board for maybe this internship is right, maybe this course is aligned, maybe it's not, but it's also the practice of letting go and letting your young adult sort of lead the life moving forward. You extend your trust then to the educators or the program staff or the peers that are going to be there in that space. And I always say this, like there's also a dignity of risk, like both the young adult has to be able to let go and you have to be able to let go for these programs to really work for both of you. So there's going to be the sense of accountability that if something does go wrong, your child will have to take that accountability, and we will say, yeah, I know telling you about it would have been great, but like this was their mess to figure out, right? Sometimes responsibility as well as natural consequences. Oftentimes we protect our students, our kids from these natural consequences, but in a college setting, it's sometimes when they experience these consequences the most, right? Like if you tell your roommate that they're ugly, they're probably not going to invite you to dinner, right? Natural consequence. No reason to make a call to the parent, but the parent's gonna be like, you should have told me, I could have convinced her out of it. Yes, you could have, but sometimes we need them to experience these things. And that's why there are certain guidelines that the programs expect so that everybody can engage meaningfully and be open to the experience together. And I always warn parents about this because it sneaks up.
I've not heard that term before, dignity of risk, but I love that. We often talk about small, safe mistakes and mess ups so that your children have that, they're gaining that in their life. That's what we want them to have. That's what every parent wants for their child. But it's such a great learning experience to have those small, safe screw ups and that dignity of risk. I love that.
Yes, yeah. So when you're thinking about an IPSI program, there's kind of a multi-pronged approach. So once we can think about the cost, some of are going to be very expensive and some are going to be very cheap, not cheap, but relatively cheaper than the others because of what they're offering, how often they're offering these programs, what's the size of the university, all of that. What's the length? Some can be a 2-year program, some can be a summer program, some can be a full 4-year opportunity. What's the size of the cohort? Sometimes they bring in 2 students a year. Sometimes they bring in 10 students a year. So I would really think about what is a good number for your students to mesh well. Location. Sometimes they even accept a lot of international students. So think about, I know you might live in Houston, but what would it look like to send your child to like a North Texas program, right? What would that look like? What does the visitation look like? What about sending it to College Station? How close to home do you want to be? Or how far away are you willing or they would like to be? What's the housing situation like? So will students live on campus? Are there off-campus housing? Or they have to find transportation to come home every day? And finally, the academic requirements. Some programs are going to be more academic forward, where they want you to have a certain GPA, maintain that. They want you to go toward like a path specifically, let's say into early education, or the end of the program is going to give you like a certificate to be a kindergarten teacher, whatever it might be. So think about the academic portion and the rigor and what is important to the young adult as well as yourself. So let's look at some sample eligibility requirements. This is from Aggie Achieve. So again, theirs is 18 to 27 entry. Again, students must serve as their own legal guardian. They must be able to attend to their own needs. So like toileting, hygiene, feeding, third grade level reading in comprehension and fluency. The student must be able to sit for 90 minutes in a college level classroom. They must have basic math understanding and must be able to use a calculator. They need to be excited about getting a job afterward. And they need to make sure that they talk about that during the interview process. Again, self-administer medications and navigate campus safely. So they must be able to cross streets, parking lots, all of that. And if you even see here, one of the requirements is be able to handle and adapt to change, not overly stressed when schedules or people change. But oftentimes for our students, change is really, really hard. And that's one of their biggest things, right? So even thinking about making sure your child is prepped. So maybe if this is a program you want to be in when your child is 17, let's think about working on some of these skills before the application process happens in 2 years so that they're ready to match some of these markers. When we look at Vast Academy at HCC, these requirements are very different, right? Their age brackets are a little different. So 18 to 25. Now this one does require a high school diploma. They do want you to complete a formal admissions process. So admissions at HCC first, and then you can be admitted into the program. You see they have some academic grade level testing requirements, function independently in a classroom, follow college code of conduct. So these admission requirements are a little bit less than what the other Aggie Achieve program was offering as well. This is for UNT Elevar program. If you see here, this is interesting where it says has completed high school with or without a diploma. So if your child is graduating with a certificate, this might be a great opportunity for them. This is where they also said live communally and independently in campus housing. So this is a residential program. Display skills to manage stress. You also have limited or no history of disruptive or aggressive behavior. You have must serve as your own legal guardian. And the other one, the dignity of risk, right? Demonstrates the ability to accept personal responsibility for actions, maintains respect for self and others.
So important.
Yeah. So what do these applications look like? So when we think about a four-year institution, that's not necessarily an inclusive post-secondary education program. Typically, the process says you complete an online application, you do all the materials, maybe you go visit the campus, then you get a financial aid package if appropriate, and then you think about housing. Who am I going to room with? Where am I going to go? For an IPSI program, these are a little bit different. Usually they have an application deadline of, I think, October to December. They also have a lot of great online webinars for parents and caregivers. So if you go on their websites, they have recorded webinars. A lot of them often do summer open houses and fall open houses for parents. So if you're in the area, please go check them out. They also have diverse application materials given the diverse needs of our students. So they might be an online application system. Then they might have an interview process where the online application can sometimes include like send me a video, create a 2-minute video telling me why you want to be here. You can creatively answer questions into like bullet points, into a poem, into other ways of expressing yourself. Then they also host some interviews, typically in the summer. They typically do 1 or 2 rounds of interviews to really see, one, if the student really wants to be there, and if it's not just a parent wanting them to be there. And 2, can they do the things they said they would in the application process? So for instance, they might host like a campus visit in the summer and say, all right, we have shortlisted 20 students and we would love to host them overnight for 2 days, right? In the overnight, they can see how the student reacts, if there's any signs of, things that they think is going to make it really hard for the student to be in the program. For instance, in one of the programs, I was able to cross the street. So they might do some of that practice crossing the street and see if this is aligned to the student needs. Then they might talk about cost. And then we talk about housing and all of those other things in terms of, then they sit down and say, let's plan for your next 4 years or 2 years. And we typically do a person-centered planning at the beginning and then at the end of the semester. And we also do a family-centered planning where we bring the parents or the caregivers in and say, this is what Erica has said she wanted to do. What do you say, mom and dad, sister, brother, uncle, aunt? And then we meet together at the end of the semester to talk about the goals. So it's kind of like an IEP, but more so about the person-driven. So the adult is going to make the PowerPoint, is what they want to do, the classes they're taking, the friends that they made, the cool dances they went to, and all of those other fun stuff. So questions to consider admissions. These are some questions that I've just shared to help you think through the process, or when you go to these open houses, it might be good to, print some of them out and ask them. Again, reading, writing requirements. Can they defer their application? If they're not ready, they get accepted and maybe something happens and the student starts getting a lot of anxiety and they need maybe some more months to prepare. Can they come back next year with that accepted application? With the application materials. So this is one that I would like to highlight. So I've read for these programs a lot, and sometimes parents are really excited about this process and they do the application on behalf of the student, and that is very common. So please don't feel bad if that happens. But as program staff, we can definitely see that, and we want it to come from the student directly. We're not judging them on anything but who they are. So make sure that the application materials are student driven, right? They make the videos, they write the application, they ask the questions that they need to. This is where the letting go starts happening early in the application process. And then think about the accommodations to the application materials. What else can my child or the young adult submit that is going to enhance their application? So, one year we had a student who was an artist, and he really communicated through his artwork. So he was allowed to submit any creative works related to him expressing the college experience that he wanted to have. Videos, interviews, all of those things are part of the application materials as well. Cost. So sometimes the program is CTP, which is a federal aid that's provided to these programs, or it's a TIPSID granted, which is another grant funding that's federal that can offer some money to the students and the families for attending. But think about the total cost of attendance and what I need to pay beyond the total cost. If the total cost is 10 grand, but that does not include any of the meals, that does not include health insurance, that does not include all the fun things that they want to do, which is go to Chick-fil-A 3 times a day, right? Which is everybody. What can I expect to pay beyond those total costs? Are there any opportunities for paid work for students on campus, which is important to help them kickstart some of that learning journey? And how are those funds distributed? And sometimes there might be any waivers that will be accepted for military families, deceased parents, and all of that. So please look out for any of those. And I would highly recommend to consider a CTP program. It's going to be typically cheaper.
And of course, a 529 college savings plan would be helpful.
Yes, thank you for that. Yes. So campus community, beyond academics, think about social opportunities available for the students. Now think about, is this program going to be more inclusive or exclusive? So sometimes the students may stay within their own cohort and they may not get a lot of exposure or experience connecting with other students that are not part of the program. Sometimes the programs are very inclusive and they recommend you join every club out there, do everything. And so think about the needs of your child. I've had students join sororities, take leadership in student organizations, all of that. Think about a peer mentorship organization or a peer support that might be offered to students. I think thrive best when they have those natural supports. And it starts out as a peer mentorship, but oftentimes I've seen it develop into a very genuine friendship, which is really great to see. What courses are offered to students, and can they take courses outside of those that are currently offered? So for instance, one year, we developed a relationship at Texas A&M with a faculty member who offered like a Texas barbecue class, which is really fun. So can they take some of those fun students? I had a student who was a theater person, and so she took all the theater courses possible. So what is it? Do they have a prescriptive course offering, or can they kind of go and explore? And what does graduation look like? Some things to think about is, do the students walk together with other students for graduation, or do they get their own separate little graduation, right? Because oftentimes they might not get a degree, but it's a certificate. But you have to think about the inclusive aspect of it, and what does that mean? For instance, at Texas A&M, students now are eligible for the Aggie Ring and all of that fun stuff. So, and do they receive alumni benefits? Because they are technically alumni. And your role, which I think often we forget to explain to the parents and parents forget to ask. What is the expectation from me? How does the program staff communicate with the families, and how often? Can the parent come stay at the dorm, right? That has been a question. Oftentimes, no, because there are other people living in that dorm, and it sort of makes the dynamics a little bit imbalanced sometimes. Sometimes they can. What kind of information is the program staff not going to be able to share? Sometimes parents might text us and ask, I saw her thinking about this guy in the class, and like, I just want to know, is there anything going on? And we could be like, Emily actually says that this is her private information and I can't give it out. I'm so sorry. But you can definitely ask Emily if she's okay with her sharing. So these kind of things we can't, because we can't be the student spies for sure. But we have to maintain the balance of being both on the student side and the parent side. And thinking about visitation, how often can the parents visit? How often can they call? What are the staff hours? All of those things. Miscellaneous, again, dating relationships policy. Is there one? Is sexuality education explicitly taught to the students? A lot of the programs it is. What kind of employment experiences are they going to be engaged in? Do you guarantee a job after the program? What does support after graduation look like? Are you still going to pick up my phone call? Are there going to be dates and times when the student is not going to have access to program staff? So for instance, if it's 2 a.m. and something happens, who is the person that they call? Or if it's a weekend, can my child or I still call the program staff? That's all, folks. The goal is for you to really have all this information when you are thinking about making these decisions, particularly as we are now going into admission season very quickly. So, think about it over the summer, go to some of these open houses, webinars, and I'm always here if you have any questions, feel free to email me. And yeah, this is a very exciting time. So I hope you really consider IPSY programs if you can.
This has been so great, and I really appreciate all of the information you've given today. April, did you have a question?
I didn't have a question, but I really do appreciate, especially when you're covering FERPA and the parents letting go. That is so difficult because as parents, we spend so many years being the inertia behind the vehicle. And then when the vehicle changes course, it is very difficult as a parent if you've not had anybody prepare you for that change because you've had to be the primary advocate. And so beginning to think about allowing your child to be an advocate, where does that begin? What part of the process? So I really appreciate that as a parent. That's great. Thank you.
I don't see any other questions. We've got a few more slides to go through, so get your questions in the chat box while I wrap up these last couple of little things. This is kind of a list of some of the things that you should keep on your radar as it relates to planning for the future. You know, that's future cost of care, the special needs care plan, all of the benefits, waiver programs, state and federal programs, SSI, SSDI, all of that are going to be very helpful in funding your child's care in the future. ABLE accounts, beneficiary designations. You probably need a special needs trust. You're going to want to look at residential living communities and programs early and tour those in case there are waiting lists. And, you know, think about the legal side of things. Guardianship, we've done lots of webinars about that. Alternatives to guardianship like supported decision-making, power of attorney, things like that. All of our upcoming webinars are going to be accessible through this link where you can register for upcoming webinars, and then you'll get reminders. And if you miss the live presentation, you would still get the recording link and the slides. And then finally, we at Consolidated Planning Group offer a completely free Zoom consultation. It's usually about 30 to 45 minutes. We want to answer your questions first, anything that we can do to help you out. And then we learn about you and your family. And we talk to you about what we do, what our pricing is, how our process works. So you can use that QR code if you would like to schedule a Zoom consultation. You can call or email the office, or you can call or email me directly, and I would be happy to set up an appointment. And then finally, this is our firm. This is our group, 4 financial advisors. It's 2 sets of husband and wife, and then we've got 4 amazing staff members who keep things running in the background for us. So we appreciate all of you for being here today. We will be reaching out to see if you want to go ahead and schedule your Zoom consultation. And I hope that I get to hear from all of you in the future. It looks like there's really not any questions because you did such a good job presenting all of this information. You were so clear and concise, and I love that. But if anybody does have any further questions or needs more help, Dr. S's contact information is in the chat box. You can reach out to her by email and ask her anything that you would like. Okay, so everybody have a great week. I look forward to hearing from you, and thank you again for being here today. Thank you so much, ladies. Have a great afternoon. Bye-bye.